What's going on, guys? Brendan Dzwierzynski here with you for your Sunflower Showdown instant reaction show, and the Kansas Jayhawks for the 18th year in a row knock off the Kansas State Wildcats here in Lawrence at Allen Fieldhouse this year by a margin of 90-68. The 14th ranked Jayhawks absolutely dominant down the stretch in this one, outscoring K-State by 14 points in the second half after going up by 8 into the break. And frankly, to be as blunt as we can be, a really ugly game overall for the Kansas State Wildcats. So the 14th ranked Jayhawks pick up a very important win for their NCAA tournament hopes. Meanwhile, this loss may be devastating for K-State's NCAA tournament hopes. Let's get to some of the high points from this one from Lawrence today. Jacked up crowd, senior day for KU, and again, a lot of history and a lot of streaks on the line for the Jayhawks. We knew going into this one that K-State had only won here in Lawrence once in the last 3 decades. That was all the way back in January of 2006. Well, they weren't able to pick up the one here, as I mentioned, for 18 consecutive years that KU has won here at Allen Fieldhouse against K-State, and 41 consecutive senior day victories, home finale victories for KU. Just unbelievable, some of the streaks that the Jayhawks have had in this building, especially when it comes to their arch rivals from just about 90 minutes to the west, down I-70 and up Highway 177. Some really impressive individual performances in this one from KU. You want to talk about both the offensive and defensive end. Hunter Dickinson goes for his 15th double-double of the year. 15 points, 20 rebounds, had 5 blocks in this contest as well. Really well-rounded game for Dickinson. He was even talking about it during post-game. He thought he was a lot better on the defensive end in this one than he had been the previous time against Kansas State back in Manhattan when the Wildcats knocked off KU by 2 possessions earlier on this season. So he goes for 15 and 20 plus 5 blocks. Kevin McCullough, he goes for your game-high 19 points in the game. Didn't get to play a ton down the stretch. The game was pretty much decided at that point. He is still dealing with that knee issue, that bone bruise inside of his knee. But he goes for 19 points. Not the most efficient day shooting, just 5 out of 14 from McCullough. He did go 7 of 7 at the free throw line. And if I may take a quick moment to just talk about the free throw shooting, we remember 1 week ago, KU right here at Allen Fieldhouse with a surprise upset loss, blowing a 12-point second-half lead in a loss to BYU. They shot terribly from the free throw line in that game, just 19 of 31 and missed 9 of them in the second half. Well, how about this for KU today? 28 out of 31 from the free throw line today, including that 7 for 7 for Kevin McCullough. Also, a couple of other individual strong performances on the offensive end. How about Nicholas Timberlake? It has been a down year for him. He admitted as much during his senior speech here at Allen Fieldhouse after the game, talked about it during his post-game comments as well in the press conference in the Allen Fieldhouse media room, stating, hey, look, I know this was not the year that I expected. I was hoping for more. Hopefully this is something that sparked something in me. And he was excellent in this game, especially in the second half. Finishes this one 18 points, 4 of 5 from three-point range, brought the roof down a couple of times here at Allen Fieldhouse. Arguably, and frankly, maybe not even arguably, his best game as a Jayhawk. Even had a transition dunk in this one. That was really impressive. Why don't we transition to the transition game here? And while K-State, which, as we know, if you've followed this K-State team all year long, as we have on 580 Sports Talk and on our 580 WIBW properties here online, you know that turnovers have been a major issue for this Kansas State team. They have struggled all year long. Well, today, unbelievably, in a game they lost by 22 points and were terrible in transition, K-State actually had its fewest turnovers in Big 12 play, just 11 of them in this one for K-State. Generally speaking, about a dozen is kind of the magic number. You don't want to give it away any more than that. If you can keep it around 10 to 12, that's a decent number. K-State only gave it away 11 times, most of those coming in the first half, but they really struggled from the floor for most of the game, and a lot of their giveaways ended up turning into points for KU. 11 turnovers leading to 15 Jayhawks points. KU, meanwhile, much more careful with the ball, just 6 turnovers in this one. That led to 9 points for Kansas State. The KU players after the game, they talked about defense. Meanwhile, Jerome Tang, head coach of the Wildcats, he talked a lot about the effort from his team, and he wanted to give mostly credit to KU for getting K-State out of their stuff, for forcing them into playing poorly in this game and playing with low energy. But Tang also said, hey, look, our guys have to look in the mirror and try to figure out what is important to them. Why did this game go the way that it went, and why did we struggle so much in this game? Will McNair ends up your best individual performer for Kansas State in this game. He goes for 17 and 10 for the double-double. 17 points was the game high for Kansas State. Also 10 rebounds. That was the second highest total of anyone in the game, the most for Kansas State. But the number that Jerome Tang pointed out, 2 offensive rebounds in this game for the Wildcats, and said that's the only number I care about from the box score for a guy like Will McNair or the rest of the big men for K-State. Only getting 2 offensive rebounds in a full 40 minutes, just not going to cut it for this Kansas State team. Another number number that really stands out because the Wildcats did end up with 3 players who went into double figures. Day Ames ended up with 10. Arthur Kaluma scored 10. A lot of his production early on in the game as well. Tyler Perry, who has been great as of late. We talked about this on 580 Sports Talk just on Tuesday, previewing this game, that K-State was going to need the 3-point shooting of Tyler Perry in this game. Well, not only did Perry miss every single 3-pointer he took, he didn't make a single field goal in this game. Had 2 free throws in the first half, and that was it for Perry scoring. He finishes with 2 points, 0 for 6 from the floor in this game, just 2 assists as well. And for as well as Perry has been playing late, a performance that K-State really could not afford in this game today. Again, just domination in the second half of this contest for the Kansas Jayhawks. And it's a game that KU really needed. The Jayhawks had lost 2 games in a row. And as Bill Self joked about during his post-game comments, the sky is falling because for the first time in 3 years, Kansas is ranked outside of the top 10 in the AP poll. But a loss, as I mentioned last week, to BYU. Then you go on the road, you hang tough, but you end up losing to a really good Baylor team as well. This Kansas team needed to do a little bit of soul searching, and they've been dealing with injuries. They've been dealing with a short bench throughout the entire course of the year. So this had to have felt like something of a cleansing victory for the Jayhawks, especially when you consider what happened in Manhattan earlier on this year. Now, how much of this actually factored into the game, that is left to the players' individual interpretation of it. Hunter Dickinson said during his post-game comments, I remembered how they celebrated after that game when they beat us in Manhattan. I remember it. It stuck with us. Said definitely, or maybe at least kind of, stuck with the Jayhawks when K-State was celebrating in the crowd and the way they got so excited about that game in Manhattan. Now, while Bill Self initially said, hey, look, we're used to things like that when we lose on the road, he also didn't have very favorable things to say about the way that K-State handled the handshake line after the game. What did that come from? Hard to say exactly. Don't know why either KU or K-State may have acted in the way that they did, but things happen like that in rivalry contests. And in the end, once again, here in Lawrence, KU gets the better of Kansas State. So where do we go from here with these 2 programs? KU is back on the road. This was senior day in Lawrence, final home game of the year. The Jayhawks will be on the road at the Fertitta Center in Houston to take on the Houston Cougars coming up on Saturday. Going to be a very challenging game for the Kansas Jayhawks. The Fertitta Center, pretty much as difficult as Allen Fieldhouse to play in this year. Meanwhile, Kansas State gets to go back home and gets to play Iowa State. It'll be senior day on Saturday for the Wildcats. Early tip-off at Bramlage Coliseum, and K-State really needs a win. We have heard all year from head coach Jerome Tang, 9-9 in Big 12 play was the magic number he thought would be enough to get the Wildcats into the NCAA tournament. Well, with the loss today, K-State is just 7-10 in Big 12 play. That's not enough. They're not going to have enough opportunities to get to that magic 9-9 record. But if you can knock off a top 10 team in Iowa State in your final home game of the regular season, maybe win a couple of games in Kansas City at the Big 12 tournament, you've got a real chance now if you're K-State to still do everything you can to solidify a potential NCAA tournament bid. It will be a steep uphill climb at this point for K-State, but that is what the Wildcats are facing if they want to get back to the NCAA tournament in the second year under Jerome Tang. We will recap this game and more coming up on our website, 580wibw.com. Make sure you're tuned in there to read the full post-game recap. No 580 Sports Talk the rest of the week. We've got state high school basketball tournament coverage coming up for you, but make sure you are listening to all of that on 580 AM and 104.9 FM. And again, stay tuned to our website and our YouTube channel, 580wibw.com and 580 Sports Talk on YouTube for more reaction to KU knocking off Kansas State in dominant fashion at Allen Fieldhouse, 90-68 in the second and final Sunflower Showdown of the season. Saying so long from Allen Fieldhouse, this is Brendan Dzwierzynski. We will talk to you guys coming up next week back on 580 Sports Talk for more KU K-State coverage.